Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You notice I got it right tonight. Well, I just can't win, can I? All right. Are there any changes or amendments or additions to deletions to the agenda? We'll get it right.
I'm going to pull item 10.01 for a presentation.
And been asked to pull 8.06. 11.01.
But that's for discussion.
That's for discussion, right. But he would like to be able to discuss on that as well, so. Okay, so we're good on that. All right. Anybody else? Nope. All right, then we'll move on. So we need approval of the minutes, Superintendent.
All right. I recommend approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting, March 25th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right. And tonight, we have some under representation, and I know I'm not trying to beat the record tonight because look at what we've got to look at tonight. So, but we have some real good representation tonight, and then we also have two guests here tonight for a special representation. So, Ms. Owens.
So we're going to start with our district spotlight tonight. We are highlighting Shark Week at Eustis Middle School. I want to welcome the principal. Ms. Crosby is here tonight as we celebrate Eustis Middle School.
Lake County School District is a place where our students are always learning and growing into the leaders of tomorrow. Benjamin Franklin is credited with the saying, "If you teach me, I will forget. If you show me, I will remember. If you involve me, I will understand." That was part of the thinking behind Shark Week at Eustis Middle School, where teachers and administrators built excitement over a hands-on lesson that taught anatomy, biology, math, and even civics lessons.
What a great way to make connections between what you're teaching when you're teaching human body systems and organs and functions and systems, than to actually do a dissection and to see the similarities between other organisms and how we function. So it's a great opportunity to tie multiple things together, as well as even evolution and other units that we're studying.
Students, administrators, teachers, and the community helped raise money for the project. Mr. Moore's class raised $1,250 alone. Students watched the money grow and looked forward to the big day when they would be ready for a whole new way of learning.
The shark dissection impacted it by getting me more interested because we could see how the shark works and how it lives.
While the project was perfect for students like Alana, who want to pursue a career in science, it drew in students with other interests as well.
I think it's definitely going to have an impact in the long run because the students are making connections that they're building between doing scale drawings that are relating back to math, also relating back to language arts, and seeing in the real world how using positive and negative connotations when they're advertising and things like that would give these kids a different perspective on maybe job opportunities.
It made me really think about, because sharks are nearly, a lot of species of sharks are nearly extinct, so I think it made me more go in the direction of helping them.
Students used the project to learn about civic engagement, with some creating signs and protesting dissection, while others took the other side in support of dissection. And the lessons didn't just focus on shark dissection. Students jumped into learning about frog anatomy as well.
We just finished a topic on the human body, so this is kind of giving them the opportunity to see what the anatomy of a frog looks like and to be able to compare it to what the human body anatomy is.
It was a week of learning students won't soon forget. Lake County Schools is the destination district for providing students with individual opportunities to excel. Stay tuned for the next District Spotlight, where we will continue shining a light on what makes Lake great.
Very nice.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the recognition of Astatula Elementary student Julia Dumont for her science fair winning invention, the Magic School Bus.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. Dr. Weisskopf is not here tonight, so I agreed to fill in for her, and I am so excited I get an opportunity to introduce you to two amazing students. The first student we're going to meet tonight is Julia Dumont. She's a 5th grade student at Astatula Elementary. She became frustrated when she continued to see cars speeding past her stopped bus, so she decided to take action. She created a flashing light bar with a stop sign to draw extra attention to the stopped bus in hopes that motorists would no longer speed past the bus and risk hitting a student. Her project, which is pictured on the screen and also here on the table facing you, won first place at the Lake County Regional Science Fair and lots of media attention and praise from the community. In fact, we have a letter from Steve Montiero, the traffic safety expert from WKMG at Channel 6. He had hoped he could be here with us tonight, but unfortunately couldn't make it. But he is endorsing Julia's idea as a true lifesaver. I will give a copy of that letter to Natalie so she can make a copy and make sure each of you get one. Tonight, Julia is sharing her idea with us. So Julia, I'm going to ask you to please come up and join me at the podium. I'm going to ask our superintendent to come down as well so we can get a picture of the two of you together. And then after that, you can tell us a little bit more about your project. So I present to you Julia Dumont.
Good job.
Do I start when I'm ready? Whenever you're
You're not on a 3-minute timer, so go ahead.
Hi, I am Julia Dumont from Astatula Elementary. First, I would like to thank the school board and Superintendent Diane Cornegie for letting me present this project to you. I would also like to thank Julie Broughton, Trooper Steve, and News 6, all of the bus drivers, teachers, and school administrators that are here to support me. My light bar started as a science fair project, but when one of my judges stopped me when I was coming out of the awards ceremony, he said that I needed to take it to the school board. I started this project because it is really important to me that children of all ages can be safe when getting on and off the school bus. When interviewing a bus driver for my project, I realized just how often cars go through the stop signs on the bus. The most common excuse for people going through the stop signs is that they did not see the stop signs. My invention will make the stop signs more visible. My light bar is a 7-foot PVC pipe with yellow reflective tape and two 2.5-foot flashing LED light bars and a red stop sign. If this bar were to be put on the bus, the bright light would make the stop signs on the bus more visible and most likely keep cars away from the bus when children are crossing. Also, if the car were to try and pass the bus, they would either hit the bar or run into traffic coming the opposite direction. I most certainly believe that this bar would help reduce the amount of kids being injured or possibly killed. I know that this light bar is not perfect and there will need to be some changes. As well as front-facing lights, I believe that there should also be rear-facing lights, so if someone is coming the direction that the bus is facing, then the stop signs will be more visible for them as well. I would also like to add that the stop sign on the bar should be bigger and the lights on the stop sign should be too. I know that this would cost a lot of money, but there are ways to pay for it. For example, lotto, front license plate, and ticketing. I know there are more ways, but I'm 10, so I don't know all the ways to pay for it. I just know that it needs to happen. When you think of the cost, don't think about how much it will be. Think of what the kids' lives are worth. Think of your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews. All kids deserve the chance to get to school safely, to get an education. I cannot imagine what it would be like if I didn't have my best friend Giovanna on the bus because she got hit by a car. I would love if the school board would join me in the journey moving forward. I am here to ask if you will help me. Again, I just want to thank the school board, Superintendent Diane Cornegie, Julie Broughton, Trooper Steve, and New 6, all of the bus drivers, teachers, and school administrators.
Incredible work. Very impressed.
Congratulations to Julia, and thank you for her family and teachers that are here tonight. Her principal, Mr. Sherman, is also here. Thank you all for being here to support her. In addition, our Director of Transportation was here tonight to hear this presentation.
Can I ask a couple of
Yes,
questions?
yes. Can you demonstrate it? Watch our eyes.
Look right at it.
Right now it's facing up. All right, here we go, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
No missing that.
All right,
Very noticeable.
right.
Do you have other questions?
Yeah, so, I tell you, there are a few things in this world that drive me as crazy as watching cars pass a school bus with the stop signs out. And you see videos all the time on social media of that happening, and it just seems like car after car after car. There's no doubt that some improvements need to be made, and I think you've got an incredible idea here. So I guess my follow-up to that is, we as a district, are we doing anything to, or what are we doing to maybe help her maybe pilot this on a bus, or is it road safe or legal, or can we help her proceed with that route and
Well, I
be a
believe
pilot?
that's why Mr. Fender was here this evening, was, if you want to come and speak to it, I know that he's already looked into this a little bit, and he's definitely interested in what we can do moving forward.
Great.
The number one thing we want to try to do is make sure she gets a patent on this before someone else steals it.
I did have the pleasure of meeting Julia and her family before the meeting and have offered to help kind of guide that. There's some people I could maybe connect them with that would help them. Just to put this into perspective, every year the Florida Department of Education asks us to do a one-day snapshot where all of our drivers go out and we track how many times our stop arm is run in one day. And last year when we did it, it was over 170 times in one day. Equate that over a full school year. In just Lake County, that's 30,000 times that happens in a school year. And so this is important. There is a process. There's federal requirements, there's state requirements. So there's a lot of kind of hoops that you have to jump through. You have to get with manufacturers to make sure that if you're going to attach something to a bus, that it can structurally withstand the weight of that. So there are some steps, but I know some people we can help them out with and maybe point them in the right direction.
Very nice.
It'd be great. Great job.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much, Julia. And your parents, thank you
Yes.
for all your support for her, because it takes the parent support as well. We appreciate that.
And it is my honor to introduce you to yet another fabulous student of ours. This time, I'm pleased to introduce you all to Lexie Cloud. She's a 7th grade student at Umatilla Middle School. Last year, Lexie created a device to help keep children from dying in hot cars. The device detects weight in a baby car seat, as well as ambient temperature. Then it sets off an alarm if it seems a child may have been left behind as the temperature rises in the car. She continued working on the project this year and won first place in her division at the State Science and Engineering Fair. Lexie is now seeking a patent for her invention, which you can see on the screen. You can see a little bit there on that image, as well as on the table here, and she's got her project board over here as well. Lexie, I'm going to ask you to please come forward. We'd like to get a picture with you and the superintendent. And after that, we'd love to hear a little bit more about your project. Let's give Lexie a hand as she comes forward.
You're hot.
Okay, so I am Lexie Cloud from Umatilla Middle School. I am in the 7th grade. Thank you all here today for inviting me to come and share with you my project. It's a big, I'm honored. So for my project, I created a pediatric vehicular heat stroke death prevention device. So it's a device that utilizes a series of switches and sensors to prevent babies from dying in hot cars. So with my research, 791 children have died of pediatric vehicular heat stroke since 1998. And we are actually Florida, second only to Texas, who's 3 times our population, for the most occurrence of these types of deaths. So it's definitely a problem locally too. So for my project, whenever the baby is inside of the car seat, the weight is detected by pressure switches located around the car seat. This turns on the thermosensor and carbon monoxide sensor, which are monitoring the levels of both carbon monoxide and temperature inside of the vehicle. If the vehicle gets to a level of 200 parts per million of carbon monoxide, or roughly 104 degrees Fahrenheit, then the system will activate. There's a direct wired signal to the LED lights on the sides of the car seat, the handle, which flash red and blue because we have dark tinted windows in Florida, and in all the panic you might not be able to, recognize the baby in the back seat very quickly, but you'll be able to easily locate the baby with the recognizable lights. So there's also a direct wired signal to the 6 cooling fans located around the inside of the car seat. So when the temperature gets too high in the car, then the car seat will use convection to blow air over the baby. There is also a direct wired signal to the RF transmitter, which is radio frequency, and that transmits a wireless wave to the car portion of the device, where there is an RF receiver, so radio frequency receiver, on the car that receives the signal and sets off the headlights, taillights, and horn on the car.
Oh, wow.
Overwhelming, to say the least, overwhelming. All right.
That's
Is it all hooked up now?
Yeah.
But we don't have any temperature in here, and we're not going to turn the heat on.
Well, there's a sensor on it, so I can use my hands if they're warm enough to demonstrate. Warming up. So the temperature is going up on the display. Almost there.
All right.
Oh, wow.
You might be
Hear
able
the
You can hear the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
that's great.
I would have bought one of those in a heartbeat.
Car didn't turn on, but
Or 2.
Car didn't turn on?
yeah, I don't think I plugged it in, but that's fine.
Hey, come up here.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
And once again, we want to thank the parents for your support in this, because it takes that. And in some cases, grandparents and aunts and uncles and all the relatives that maybe contribute. And I will tell you, now she says she has a GoFundMe account, and she's working on her patent, and I have passed it on to Julia that she needs to get one, and, check people with deep pockets.
I almost feel like we're on Shark Tank. If only I had money.
But also, we have some representatives from banks that may want to invest as well.
It really is Shark Week.
Yeah, I'll give them a commercial because, hey, I'm not getting anything out of this. But you know, the thing is, to me, this is great. This represents Lake County Schools tremendously to let us know what our teachers in the classrooms are doing to inspire our young kids to want to do something like this and to excel. And I thank you for that. And the teachers, I applaud you as well. Thank you very much.
Her proud principal is here tonight as well. Mr. Frazier's in the back with his
Yeah, I
camera.
seen him back there,
All smiles.
up there taking pictures. He wanted to make sure he got not in the picture, but got a picture. All right. Well, thank you once again. And good luck with the arm. I think that'll be great. And also with the car seat. And if she's not planning on having any more kids right now,
No.
but if she does, she'll be one of your first buyers.
Yes, I would have bought two. I had twins, and
All right.
man, I wanted one of those.
Moving on to public input now. We have a couple, and one is we'll hold off until we get to those items that we pulled. And Mr. Stuart Clapp. Mr. Clapp, before you start, families, you're welcome to stay if you'd like, but if you don't have to feel obligated since you were invited to be here for this, because they have to go to school tomorrow. Okay, so we thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Mr. Clapp, but that way.
Oh, that's okay. No, I applaud the teachers, the students, and the projects were wonderful. I'm Stuart Clapp, president of LCEA. Passed out an article for you, and I sent you some articles earlier. The teacher shortage is real, guys. After years of annual contracts, changes to FRS, additional required PD for recertification of teachers, bonus schemes that defied teachers, unfair pay increases, transferring money to questionable voucher programs, cuts in our health care benefits. Teachers have had enough. Teachers are showing that they've had enough by leaving, or I just saw where teachers were telling people not to enter the profession because of the way they're being treated. But out of a crisis comes opportunity. Lately, some of our experienced teachers are now being questioned as by whether they're going to leave or stay, but now is the time to work with schools, to truly create that destination district for teachers, and show that our teachers are valued and supported. The budget is in the beginning of stages for next year. Bargaining is set to begin. This is a perfect opportunity to truly design a destination district. And you all know, following the lead of our legislature and DOE does not solve our problems. We've seen it exasperate our teacher shortage problems. So let's change the paradigm and let's create a school district that we can all be proud of. Now, change the subject. Through grants from the National Education Association, Florida Education Association, Lake County teachers now have the opportunity to bring contract negotiations into the 21st century. I talked to you a while back about including student voice and parent voice in our contract negotiations. So we're also looking at community members, outside experts as part of the bargaining team to truly be able to help design a system that we as a school system can be proud of, and broaden and bring in experts as the topic of discussion indicates. We're excited about broadening the total scope of our bargaining within the framework. And then one other thing. This week, I was representing a teacher, and it's the 44th anniversary of Weidengarten, where employees can have a union representative. And I got to hear firsthand the response when a teacher asked, what can I do to improve? What have I done, or why are you letting me go under the resign or be terminated? And the answer was given not once, but twice. I don't have to tell you. I think our teachers deserve an answer as to what they can do to improve. What can they do to make sure they stay an active, functioning professional within our school system? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Dr. Tibbetts. Oh,
I was going to be very brief until I saw the things that had happened before me. What a joyous occasion to see those young ladies and what they've accomplished. But picking up on what Stuart just said, where was the acknowledgement of their teachers? It's a two-way street. He's absolutely right. We've got to treat our teachers better. Couple of things. One, in looking at the agenda, and obviously I've missed it in the past, but you have before you tonight a contract for the school board attorney. And I just want to let Mr. Johnson know I'm in favor of continuing his employee, but I'm absolutely amazed that in the contract, you're agreeing to pay for his professional obligations to join an association. And I would ask you, has that ever happened to you? Some of you who are teachers, did anybody pay your bills if you wanted to belong to an association? I would seriously ask you to consider, shouldn't that be the cost of Mr. Johnson and his firm of doing business? Finally, I've handed out to all of you a copy of the obituary from Mr. Crawford. One, because recently we have been honoring past teachers for the service. But in the two most recent cases, it was people that we knew. They had just retired or they had just died and had been very active. But what happens when someone like Mr. Crawford comes along, who was here serving this district 30 years ago, before some of you were even out of school? This man was a principal. But who knows? How do you find out? Where's the advocacy group for these people from the past? They've moved away, they've gone. They aren't players on a team that currently say we need to do something. But how do you get to or acknowledge a history like this? And I think if we're going to honor, we have to look at the entirety of those who have served. Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Tibbetts. And just to add to that, some of the previous employees that have retired from Tavarius Elementary that worked under, he was known as Mr. C to most of his friends and coworkers, or Skip Crawford to others. They are trying to put together a tribute and maybe a case of some type to display. The 15 years that he was there at Tavarius Elementary, he promoted the dinner theaters that were put on there by Mrs. Bain. He supported her wholeheartedly, so they're trying to do something there. The other thing that was pretty exciting about Mr. Crawford was he was a person that got into the classrooms with the kids, and the teachers would find him in there, and he would be on the floor with them reading a book. And you had to see it to really understand what he was about. He was about the kids. And one of the captions they put over with him walking out with two kids, one in each hand, walking out the front of the school, says, "I'm having fun. I'm having fun." And that's, to me, that is something that excels there for a principal to be able to do that with the kids of his school and everything. And the kids loved him. So they are trying to do something there for him, though, at Tavares Elementary. So we'll keep you in tune with that. Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. And tonight we have the Educational Foundation report, and subbing for Ms. Cullen Batt tonight is Audra. I can't even read my own writing. Audra.
Good evening, Chairman Gamble, School Board, Superintendent. My name is Audra, and I am giving the Foundation report as Carmen is in a meeting in Lake Wales tonight. Our Apple Mart stores had 580 teacher visits, trending 3.6% above last year. We've distributed $43,500 in school supplies. Our Night of Stars is Wednesday, April 17th at 6 p.m. at Lake Sumter State College. We will be honoring the Employees of the Year, the Volunteers of the Year, the inductees for Hall of Fame, and Dr. Hussein, Florida Cancer Specialist, as the Business Partner of the Year. Insight Financial is the presenting sponsor. The top Scholar Luncheon is April 25th at Morrison Methodist Church. 86 students who ranked in the top 3% of the 2019 graduating class will be honored. The Take Stock in Children graduation breakfast will be held at Morrison Methodist on Tuesday, April 30th at 8 a.m. We will be honoring the 46 students that will be graduating as TSIC scholars. The Take Stock in Children's contract signing will be held on May 14th at Lake Sumter State College at 5:30. We are interviewing the potential recipients this week and next, and will be awarding up to 41 scholarships. The retirement dinner is also that night on May 14th at Lake Sumter State College in the Magnolia Room, also at 5:30. The dancers for Stepping Out for Education for 2019 on July 26th and 27th have been named. The dance will be at Mission Inn, and our dancers this year are Nan Cobb from Cobb Tractor, Chief Charles Broadway, Claremont Police Department, our very own Diane Cornegay, Superintendent of Lake County Schools, Jim Miller, Grizzard Commercial, RE, Elise Morris, Ernie Morris Enterprises, and Representative Anthony Sabatini. Red for Ed, the countywide school collection drive kicks off July 1st. Last year, 120 businesses participated, and we raised over 10,000 pounds of school supplies for Lake County Schools. The weigh-in this year will be at Wooten Park on August 4th, and any business that would like to participate, just contact us. Our next board meeting is April 24th, and our strategic plan for 2019-2020 is May 8th. Are there any questions?
I just want to say thank you again. We had our teachers, our Lake County Knights teachers, their years 1 through 3, and they went to the Apple Mart and actually the conference room ahead of time at the Educational Foundation. And Carmen, as always, is delightful and entertaining and so appreciative of our teachers. I mean, you talk about somebody that will celebrate and advocate and fundraise and take care of the teachers in Lake County. And so she was an amazing host. And then we got to go to the Apple Mart, and the teachers were like, we can have any of this? And we took some really good pictures and whatnot. We're super thankful for the relationship that we have with you, and we appreciate the Educational Foundation very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to our attorney report.
Chairman, a couple of things. First of all, I checked on the case filed in Claremont by Ms. Page. The judge denied the request by the city for a rehearing, which means that the order of the judge granting the writ of certiorari remains in effect unless appealed. They have until they, being the city, if they wanted to appeal the decision, have 30 days from March 20th which I believe is next Friday, to file an appeal. If they don't file an appeal by then that matter is over. I did go back and check. I think I mentioned I was going to, of the Seven Lakes Charter School that's impacted by this decision. They have until the fall of 2020 to open a school, so that's not directly impacting them, but that is the last extension, unless the law changes between now and then, for them to find a piece of property to put a school on. This afternoon, I was on a conference call put together for members of the Florida School Board Attorneys Association to talk about the grand jury coming up. And just to, we had not heard much information. I had not heard much information about it. I'm sure you're all aware that the governor had appointed a statewide grand jury to investigate certain matters related to school districts in the state. It will be based out of Broward County, and the jurors will be pulled, I believe, from Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties. The statewide prosecutor who's been appointed is named Rick Cox. This is the first one in, I believe, several years that they've had a statewide grand jury. They are going to start impanelment in June 6th. We understand that's a little late for these kinds of situations, but apparently that perhaps all of the factual information hadn't yet been put together to make the allegations whatever they're going to be at some point in the future. All we know about right now are the 4 topics that were referenced in the Supreme Court's order appointing the grand jury. The Florida School Board Association has retained an attorney who was a former statewide prosecutor who's providing advice and counsel on what the school board members and the school board should do as far as responding or not responding. I asked specifically what advice was being given not only to them, but also the counsel for FADS was on the line with us, and she indicated that they, as well as the FSBA, were providing the counsel for the board members and the superintendents, obviously not to discuss this. It's an ongoing, potentially criminal investigation, and that it would be best not to discuss it. And to seek some advice before you being put in a position that you would need to provide any documentation or evidence. The advice that came out of it for the district was that, especially for those items that were brought up in the student safety legislation and will be, and there's quite a bit of it coming out at this session, depending upon how much finally passes, that to make sure that you are in strict compliance with all of the timelines, deadlines, how many people have to be here, what dates that you have to complete various items that are in the legislation or have been in a rule, because they believe that's going to be the focus of the grand jury, is meeting the strict requirements of statutes that have been passed and meeting the guidelines and deadlines that have been implemented. I mean, for example, for the threat assessment, I think it's the threat assessment teams, the DOE was supposed to have a model policy that all the school boards are supposed to adopt by a certain deadline. Well, there is no model policy adopted yet, so it's going to be suggested probably that in an abundance of caution that the school board go ahead and adopt a policy of their own, and if it needs to be amended after the DOE gets around to adopting one, then it can be amended at that point in time. But specifically the policies and procedures that have also been listed, there's an urgency to make sure that there's strict compliance with all those. And, you know, I don't know if we've contacted the Neola folks about it. their policies. I'm assuming they are developing these policies for some of their other clients. So it'd probably be a good idea to get them on board with it as soon as possible. Up until, in June 6th, we may know something else. Mr. Cox has been invited to the next Florida School Board Attorneys Association meeting in June to talk to him about, what we can expect and what we need to do perhaps to prepare for the information requests, which are inevitably coming, I'm sure. So we'll know more and keep you up to date as things go on that. And the last thing, just to address Mr. Tibbetts, Mr. Tibbetts' comment. The Florida School Board Association, it was pure coincidence that we had this meeting, phone meeting today, but that's exactly the kind of information. The association is an association primarily of the 67 school board attorneys in the state. We have a listserv, we answer each other's questions, we share documents. They use ours, we use theirs. When there's an issue that a lot of people are dealing with at the same times, it's a tremendous source of information. It's not a professional obligation of mine to belong to the Florida School Board Attorneys Association. It's pretty good sense for my client, the school board, for me to belong to it so that I have access to those people and to that information. Once a quarter, they put on a day and a half seminars where they bring in people specializing in all the varied topics that compromise representing a school board: employment law, student law, discrimination, grand juries. So I've always thought it was worthwhile. Over the course of the year, it's not a large cost, and it hasn't been on our contract forever, but I went to the first one in 1995 that I went to, and I know Mr. Macklin used to go before me to them. So we have it on the agenda tonight, and if we have any questions about any of the things that we do for the school board, I'm always happy to answer them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, we have no unfinished business, so moving on to the consent agenda. Mr. Superintendent.
Recommend approval of consent agenda items 8.01 to 8.05, 8.07 to 9.02, and 10.02 to 10.07.
Okay, you've heard our recommendations. We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right. Going back to 8.06 has been pulled, and Mr. Yoakum, we have a card for you on that, if you'd like to come forward and speak to this.
Vance Yoakum, I write the blog fiscalrangers.com. I just put my taxpayer hat on and looked at this and read that I think it said that by changing your pharmacy benefit firm, you're going to save $7 million. And then I read further and it says, but there's no savings. And it's a little hard to understand because I know it's a presentation where there's explanations, maybe verbally, but we weren't getting it here. And I would like to ask maybe Mr. Ward could describe where the differences were, what caused this to be able to save so much, and which is great. Kudos to finding that. But then also it said that there were no reserves, and it wasn't quite clear what that was covering and why you're shifting all the money to reserves. I understand what reserves are, to build those up rather than it be available for budget projects.
Okay, well, we have some people here tonight from Gallagher that would be able to answer this, but I can tell you real quickly on the reserve. We are supposed to have, just like our general fund, supposed to have a reserve there for the insurance as well in case something was to happen. Right now, that is nothing.
You didn't have it in the past?
We won't go into discussion on that.
Well, we were
from my
As the
understanding.
resident watchdog blogger.
No, I can tell you, Carol McLeod always wrote a letter, and she would say, we're not going to keep a reserve into our insurance fund because we had the fund balance that would cover the insurance fund. So
Okay.
that was a letter she wrote every year, but now that we're getting our fund balance where it needs to be, we don't want to be dipping into that pot to pay for this pot, so.
Okay, and I would just like to say that the presentations you had here, the A in STEAM is for audit, I thought, and I think that you ought to have a competition for students to audit different departments and sections in the financial system here and get their awards nationally.
It is for our-
And I'll help coach them. But I'd like to hear it. I'm pleased that you found that $7 million, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll call up the experts to come from Gallagher to speak to this, but I just want to reinforce what you said. The Division of Insurance requires us to have 60 days of claims, and in the past, we've been able to get out of that by writing a letter saying that we have a fund balance that'll cover losses. However, as we're all aware, our fund balances have been low, and in the case if we did have a significant increase in claims, our fund balance would not have been able to cover it without dipping below the 3%, and we would have to notify the governor of that. So, but I'll go ahead and invite the Gallagher team up to speak about the other questions. Thank you.
The whole team?
Well, usually Josh is here. He's out of country, though.
You need to speak at the microphone.
That'll be the first part.
Scott with Gallagher. Josh is on vacation, so I'm filling in for him. Bridget also works on your account, and Jean Dorr is our pharmacy consultant. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, I think what he's trying to find out is how we're going to come up with that fund balance and not cost any more money. I think that was your question, wasn't it, Mr. Yoakum? You can just nod.
That wasn't his question.
Okay, well then come up and redirect then, please.
I'd like to know, how did these savings, what was the difference between the old plan and the new plan that you were able to identify savings? Because I saw a lot of issues in earlier presentations where there was just like no guidance and costs were running amok at the clinics and so forth. So maybe you could address that. Thank you.
Primarily on pharmacy, that was the first number that was brought up. And I'll let Jean speak to any specifics, but the $7 million is over 3 years. So it's a big number. Clearly, the savings was more around about $1 million, a little bit over $2 million per year. That came from a number of components in your pharmacy program. Primarily, it was through a PBM, a pharmacy benefit management RFP that we conducted a while back. We had proposals from 8 or 9 different firms, shortlisted it to Prime Therapeutics, your current vendor, looked at ESI, Express Scripts, and Jean, who was the third? Optum, which is a division of United Healthcare. We ultimately landed on Express Scripts, which generated that significant savings over your current program. So we're looking at a reduction going forward with the Express Scripts contract.
This is an anticipated reduction going forward.
Correct.
If our current actuarial values for the pharmaceuticals stay the same, right?
Yeah.
People's prescriptions roughly stay the same.
So exactly. So we can't predict in the future what people are going to take, but we take all of those claims from the past 20 or 12 months of data and literally model every single one of them against about 30 different components of that pharmacy contract and come up with had we been with this vendor, this is what we would have paid. Had we been with this vendor, this is what we would have paid. It's a fairly straightforward process to do. What isn't guaranteed is going forward that people are going to use exactly the same medications. But it's pretty likely. You have a fairly significant population. It doesn't change that much. So it's a good process to look at. If we make that move, this is what we can anticipate in the way of savings. And what I would add on pharmacy is, of all of the plan components that you have, that's the one that is, frankly, has the most opportunity for savings and also changes the most rapidly. Probably by September, when we put this in place, if we could redo it, we could probably squeeze a few more dollars out of it. The drug companies and the PBMs in particular are very It's very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of new drugs that come to the market. There's a lot of rules around brand and generic, kind of what people can take and what they can prescribe. So, we're fortunate to have Gene and his team be able to look at that for us and for our clients. So that's the pharmacy part. Were there questions around the plan design changes that we had looked at as well? So the copays and the deductibles, that kind of stuff?
Mr. Mathias?
I want to go back to the pharmacies for a second.
Okay.
So you projected a savings of $7 million over 3 years.
Correct.
Are we locked in then for 3 years? Is that how you cut that deal?
Yes, so we're locked into that deal with Express Scripts starting September 1.
It is a 3-year contract, but there are provisions within the contract for early termination, for instances of breach for sure. But if we wanted to go through some rigorous accounting of what the rigorous accounting of what might not be in place that should be, we could terminate the contract early. There's also, I'm sorry. Well, it is a 3-year contract term, yes. But there is a early termination clause and provision within the contract.
Within state statute, as the legislators are moving to even looking at drugs outside of the U.S., would we see some benefit from that or no?
Under federal law, importation of drugs from Canada is illegal.
So they don't know what you're talking about.
Pardon me? It does.
The legislature doesn't know what they're doing then.
No, it does happen. It does happen, but under federal law, it's illegal. But we could look at and analyze whether or not it would be there'd be a savings opportunity for the county. Yes.
How would we look at it if it's not legal?
Is this a state versus federal law thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
Yes.
It's like marijuana.
Yeah, right. There are multiple county governments that do, and city governments that do import drugs from Canada.
Right now?
Yes.
So why don't we look at it?
We could.
No, I'm saying we should.
Okay.
But wait,
Then
if
will.
we do that, would that be us breaching the contract? I mean,
That's a great question. No, it wouldn't be a breach of the contract. This would be outside of the contract with Express Scripts.
and so we could do both?
Yes. But one of the concerns in the FDA, and this is why it's illegal on a federal level, is that there are certain concerns that they have that the drug that is coming in from Canada might not be the same drug that's FDA approved.
Right.
Okay? So it might be a solution to save money, but the FDA considers it illegal. The federal law considers it illegal because of efficacy reasons and safety reasons.
How do you feel about it?
So how do other counties then do it? And, I mean, as Mr. Mathias said, if other counties are doing it, then we should be looking into this if it's a way to make savings. But how do they get by with doing this?
It's a way of saving money, and they are potentially saving money. Our organization, Gallagher, has not done a specific analysis on this. So it would be a question to you, that the board, whether or not you are willing to look beyond the federal statutes and the safety concerns.
Is it a real safety concern? I mean, usually those companies sell their drugs to the Canadian government, and then we would just be buying them back.
Well, I cannot speak for the FDA, okay? And do I think it's a safety concern? Potentially, yes, because I have seen a letter come from the FDA, and they sent it to a company, a Canadian company called CannaRx, that specifies within that letter that you are saying the drug A is drug A, but it has a different color or size, okay? So that's part of the safety concern.
It has a different color? Seriously?
So are these generic manufacturers that the concern is with?
Pardon me?
Is the concern with generic manufacturers versus
No, it's also brand.
brand?
It's not just that it's a different color. The different color or size could indicate that it's a different chemical entity. We don't know.
Sounds like there's more that we
Mr.
don't.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know, if y'all are interested in taking the federal law to its limits, please be advised that also means you put your money at risk at the same time, because most of the school district's funds, or a lot of them through the state or whatever, come from the federal government, and I believe that's how they would uphold their prohibition about us doing something against the rules.
Even if the Florida legislature moved ahead with allowing it.
The same thing as marijuana. It's okayed in some states, but the federal government says no. So which law do you follow?
Which one are we following? Pretty much the state tells us pretty much what to do, right?
Well, I don't believe we have a policy for marijuana.
But do we really think if the federal government said, we're going to hold up dollars, which they've held us at ransom before, then we would maybe readdress ourselves? But for right now, they haven't said that, and I would push it to the limit at this moment and see, I'd like to see what it would look like if we decided to do that.
Okay, we can run that analysis.
So do we need to vote on this then? Because I would like to see that first.
Well,
I'm not sure which one we're voting on here.
this is 806.
The item that you pulled was actually the plan design questions, not the pharmacy piece. So there were two agenda items. So not to get too technical.
We already voted on the consent agenda. This is new information on the pharmacy then.
It is. Well, the thing that I understand from this is, though, if we do this, it could hurt us as far as whenever we go to do re-enrollment, because it would push that back, which causes a ill effect with our policy, with our insurance policies.
We didn't just ask for the study then.
Right, I think we could do that. Just ask that above this. But we don't want to stop the open enrollment that would be coming around, that this is affecting. Am I right, Mr. Wadsworth? Thank you.
And we are working on the time frame. I know Mr. Farnsworth and I spoke about that, but one of the concerns I had was that that push, it's not necessarily the best bargaining practice to have the open enrollment prior to our negotiations. So I know that's something that we've talked about that we're going to work on.
Right. So we get this stuff way ahead done, and then all the other.
Okay.
All right.
So what would you like us to do then on the Canadian drug question? Kind of get back to you with a,
Presentation? And if you're looking into it and you mentioned like the wrong color, the wrong numbers or something, size of the pills, can you let us know if they found that the medication itself was wrong? Because I'm sure they analyzed it. Like, if you know of instances, can we find out if those instances were actual instances where there was a problem beyond color and physical size? Because I think anyone who takes meds knows that, they come in 50 million different colors and sizes.
And I'll throw out there that I'm particularly interested in the liability that a school district would assume by endorsing a program that distributes drugs not approved by the FDA.
Right.
I mean, I guess I got to throw that out there.
Part of my problem is I think the FDA is protecting an industry.
Sure. But.
And I think that if it's identically the same drugs, then what liability would you have? Legit. So,
Right, which is why I would like to know if there was actually any concernable, cases that were of actual concern.
Well,
Okay.
this is way off course possibly, but then I guess that's why we buy American.
I'm going to buy
rethink
American.
those generators, huh?
However, it has to be perceived value. When my customers buy American, it's because our product is the best.
Right.
If it is Canadian and it's American and they're identically the same and it's half the price, then we're doing a disservice to our employees, not giving them that benefit.
I agree. All righty. So you know where you're going on that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. You might have any other questions?
So the one other thing that I wanted to throw out there, and I'm confident the district will have a good plan in place, but I think the one curveball that an employee could potentially encounter after September when they go to a pharmacy is that they would require a separate card, right? That wouldn't be their health benefits card. They would have a pharmaceutical card as well. So I imagine the district will have a great communications plan in place to ensure that all the employees are not caught by surprise when they show up to get their amoxicillin and they say no.
You probably don't read the memo, but yes, we'll have a communication plan.
But there again, this is only those employees that go outside of care here anything they get at Care Here, that's not a problem, but it's those that go to a regular doctor outside of Care Here and they have a prescription at Publix or wherever. So.
Yes, so I can speak to that. You're absolutely correct. Anyone who's not getting a generic drug at your Care Here centers. Also, we're going to be utilizing Explain My Benefits, EMB, again this year. So there will be meetings that will be set up that will be communicating this. We have already mapped out our communications plans, and there are several different media ways that we are going to be communicating out to all the employees. We can do push notifications out to all the employees as well. So lots of ways we're going to be communicating it. Also, it's very fortunate for you that you do your enrollment this early before school ends, because that gives us the whole summer to communicate it, make sure cards do get out, and communicate any of those changes. So yes, we have a full plan mapped out timeline for that as well.
Can employees get cards online? Like, you know, it doesn't come in the mail, or like at my house, the mail gets lost.
Yes, they could be printed online.
Yes. Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
I just want to say thank you for the work. I've heard from several staff members that you guys have been working very hard on our plan, so thank you.
And I want to convey that as well, because I sit in on y'all's meetings with the employees, and it's very impressive what they bring to the table. And Josh does a great job, and she's right there beside him as far if he has any questions or support he needs, she jumps right in and she fills it for him. And but they do a great job, and they're out there to try to save the district money. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Well, certainly a lot of work by our insurance committee, and I want to thank Mr. Farnsworth and Mr. Ward who participated in that, LCEA and SEIU for being collaborative partners as we seek the best plan for all of our employees. They've worked very hard, so thank you all.
Superintendent, motion.
And I recommend approval of 8.06, the health insurance plan design changes for 1920.
You heard the motion.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Did you want to add? Okay. All right. All in favor then say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to 10.01, Superintendent.
So we started this meeting with a really amazing presentation by two young ladies, and we're going to almost end the agenda. There is one item after this with something that I am so excited to bring to you all to learn more about. And so with us tonight is Roseanne Brandenburg, who I know is someone that you all know. She's representing Insight Credit Union tonight, and Linda Shepard Miller is the principal at Lake Minneola High School. And it's been a while since Ms. Shepard and I talked about her vision to have a finance academy at her school, and Insight partnered with her, and so they've been working on that. So tonight you have the contract that has been reviewed by Insight's attorney along with Mr. Johnson, and so they're going to come and just share a little bit about the vision for this finance academy and the partnership with Insight Credit Union. So we'll invite them up now.
Good evening, everyone. Several years ago, East Ridge High School started this program, and they had the insight for it, and for whatever reasons, it didn't go through. And so my Hawks, being the Hawks that they are, I always tell them winners never quit and quitters never win. So they came to me and said, you know, Mama Hawk, what can we do to get this program here? And I said, well, we have some responsible Hawks. So I have responsible students, and now I need those students to be responsible spenders. And so this opportunity that we will have at Lake Minneola High School will give our students an opportunity to have real life experience as well as experience with on-the-job training. So we're excited about this opportunity for our Hawks. And I started looking at this several years ago when we opened Lake Minneola High School back in 2011. And in 2010, I visited Timber Creek High School in Orlando. And what an amazing opportunity they had there for their kids. So I'm like, we don't have anything like that in Lake County. And as I visited, we were probably about the only county that didn't have any. So I am so glad that my Hawks pushed me and said, don't let this go, and be able to give that opportunity to them. And then possibly we can offer that opportunity to other high schools in our county. Thank you.
Good evening.
And to go along with Ms. Shepherd, so we started the dialogue, almost about a year ago, and we are excited that with the new Finance Academy, so starting in school year 2021, we will roll out to have a branch, Insight Credit Union branch at Lake Mineola High School. Ms. Shepherd has the perfect location for this. This will be offered to only the students and the teachers and the staff at Lake Mineola. So people from the outside will not be able to come to the school to do any of their banking needs. We're located about 1.5 miles down the road from the high school, so we are close enough. So at Insight Credit Union, we are excited about this partnership, and we will continue to do what all we need to do to get it started. And I look forward to working with Mr. Carr to get everything set up. So if there's any questions, we're happy to answer those. Otherwise, thank you very much.
What's the certification that is going to come with this academy? Is there a certification yet? Like, I see tape on there.
There is one.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to decide, we're working with Francis Sellis with CTE to make sure to decide which one that we will have.
Microphone.
The microphone.
With Francis Sellis, and so there's different certifications that you can have, but one of the first things we need to do is make sure that teacher is certified as well. And so we have a teacher on staff that worked at a bank prior to coming in to the school, and so we're looking at that certification, and we'll come back and tell you. There's several that you can go for, but again, we would not have this one if there was not a certification attached to it.
Kathy? Talking about Kathy?
Yes, Kathy McKeeby, yes.
Along those lines, I know that, for instance, for like the Health Sciences Collegiate Academy, we've seen a track of what a 4-year career looks like for a student in that program. I'd be interested in seeing what the progression looks like going through this academy. When y'all develop it, when you've got that, obviously, not tonight. But.
And I know Ms. Sellis can speak to some of that. She can also tell you some information about the certifications if you'd like to know a little bit more.
Please.
Come on up.
Just like to say, as she's coming up, it's neat to have at Insight Financial Ms. Rosenberg there, because she sat on this board as a board member, vice chair, and chair. Brandenburg.
Roseanne Brandenburg. I think that came together.
Rosenberg, I just convinced. But we're glad that she's here. I just condensed it, there we go. But we're glad that you sit on that, and you're there, and you're looking out for Lake County Schools while you're there, and I appreciate that very much, even though I got the name wrong. I know who you are.
So the pathway, it's 4 courses. There's some options in the 3rd and 4th year, what we're leaning towards at this point. So it starts off with DIT, which is Digital Information Technology, which our students are currently in this year. Then the second course we're looking at is Accounting Applications. So the certification tied to that is QuickBooks. So it's the accounting certification. So really, they have opportunity for 2 certifications, Digital Information Technology. They work towards either the MOS, the MOS, Microsoft Office Bundle, or the CIW IBA, the Internet Business Associate. The third one is the financial internship, is where the hope is that we'll be working at that point within the actual branch within the credit union. And then the final one is personal finance. Within that, AP, microeconomics are courses that are recommended to kind of partner with those, because the idea is that this is rigorous academic content to prepare them for financial careers, depending on what they decide to do post-secondary.
Nice.
And approximately how many students get the opportunity to participate in a cohort each?
So obviously, like most of our CT pathways, they tend to funnel down a little bit. So DIT tends to be very broad, and as kids start looking at specializing in the different classes, we'll have to work with the credit union and their vision in terms of how many students would be working in the credit union at a time, that 3rd and 4th year. Typically, you're looking about 12 to 15 students per semester that have that opportunity in my experiences in the past. But that's something that we'll work out as we have the location set up and the capacity for students in there. It can't be overcrowded either. You're talking security and different pieces that we'll want to make sure that we honor their vision for that and the size of the branch and everything.
And I'm to understand also that one of the students would actually be like the branch manager or something of that nature there, so they get the training.
Yes, there would be, and so the students who are selected, they will actually also be employees of Insight Credit Union. So if we have opportunities for them to work in our actual branches during their summer breaks or spring break or things like that, they would get paid, but while they're doing this at school, they will not get any compensation for that.
Okay.
I think it sounds like a fabulous, and I want to thank you both so much.
Yes. Anyone else have any comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mama Hawk.
I do have one from Mrs. Shepherd. Don't leave real quick, because I want you there for board member comments. So I was going to talk about it, but I'm going to let you do it.
All right. So, Superintendent?
I am very pleased to recommend approval of the agreement with Insight Credit Union for the branch at Lake Minneola High School.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Moving on to 11.01, and Mr. Yocum, would you like to come forward and speak to 11.01 before you leave? I have 11.01 on your card.
Yeah, but you only get one, Vance. Seriously.
Twice 11.01.
Don't be a hog.
Okay.
The rite of passage contract, I just wanted to say that I read that, and, I used to audit contracts a lot, and that's another one I'd like to turn the students loose on. But there are a lot of vague requirements, and then I went and I looked, okay, then one of the standard things that you would have in an agreement should be an audit clause. You have a district auditor. And I searched on audit. I couldn't find anything saying that you had a clause and a right to audit. So if something comes up and you want to check the compliance, and frankly, a lot of those things are very vague. They talk about following regulations, but then they don't say what the regulation is. And I just, as an auditor who used to audit contracts, I think that you have an issue where if you don't have an audit clause in there, and then if something comes up, parents get angry or something like that, you don't have that in there for even your auditor to go. It does talk about state audits and it talks about federal audits, but it doesn't exactly explain who's going to be doing those. So I just look at it as, I think you're kind of leaving yourself out to hang here without a clear requirement for the rights to audit by your district auditor.
Just a point is, rite of passage is 11.01, so you got to talk before we voted. I'm not even sure if we're voting on this.
That was 11.01.
You are voting on this?
Yes.
He wanted to talk about 10.01.
But he said rite of passage, which is 11.01.
Yeah. You want to talk about the other thing also?
He wants to talk about everything.
Oh.
And you do not get to.
I was just saying he got to talk about what he wanted to talk about.
No, he
Apparently
missed
not. Okay.
He got 2 out of 3.
Viewpoint on that, Mr. Johnson.
What?
No, I'm talking about what he asked about the audit. I thought this contract had places in there that it were.
I think it does. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. We can add lots of other
Microphone.
too, but I'd be happy to. It's on. As loud as I can talk, unfortunately. I'd be happy to look at one. I don't think it's necessary to pull this agreement since this is going to be required by the state to enter into this agreement for that purpose. But I'd be happy going forward, Mr. Yocum, if you want to give me a paragraph related to audit requests. I'll take a look, see if we can include it in some other contracts. Probably. I didn't memorize that.
In the construction contracts, I do remember something about that our in-house auditor goes and takes care of that after it gets to a certain phase, if I'm not mistaken.
We directed that. That's
Yes.
correct.
We try to keep each contract
Yes.
under 5 pounds or so.
Does anyone have any other discussion on 11.01?
I do. So at one point, we approved this relationship already. And then the county commission didn't give them the property or whatever. And then they said it was going to be a year before they could come back. So obviously they came back before a year. So are we ahead of the county commission? Has the county commission already approved them?
They have, and so the reason why I put this under discussion is this was an item that was workshopped pretty thoroughly a while back, and then it came and then it went away, and now it's back. And so I'd ask Ms. Dillon Banks just to kind of give us an update of kind of historically what has happened and why we're back here again now, because it has received approval by the county commission, so we are ready to move forward. Remember, the rites of passage is the educational provider for the site. The site is actually a state program that is in partnership with the Florida Department of Education and DJJ. So I would imagine any auditing and oversight is going to come through the Department of Juvenile Justice. So this one is to approve the educational provider. Then Ms. Dillon Banks will answer any questions that you have. And I asked her just to tell us kind of briefly about how we are here tonight with the item back and what the plan is moving forward.
Superintendent is correct. This item was workshopped back in October along with the DJJ agreement. That agreement was approved in October. This one was on hold until November, pending approval for zoning. They were not approved, so we pulled that item. Waiting on the 1 year, you're right, Mr. Mathias, but we were notified by Department of Juvenile Justice that they were on a zoning committee agenda in March, and I believe in February, School Board Attorney Elizabeth Turner and Superintendent Carnegie made everyone aware that that was coming up, and they have since been approved. And we were notified that Hope Forest will be opening May 1st, which is why we're bringing this agreement back to you to request approval for agreement for educational services with rite of passage for Hope Forest Academy. So that's just a
Opening this
summary.
May?
Yes, ma'am, May 1st of 2019.
Same location?
Yes, sir.
Well, they voted to reject the request the first time, and apparently some people came and they had a request for rehearing or whatever their process is in the county, and only one family came back the second time, and they worked out, quite frankly, a settlement with them. It had to do with noise and hours of operation in the neighborhood, that kind of thing, and we've actually included some of those items in our the restrictions in the contract for their operation of the school.
But the other thing that we talked about the last time we approved it is they would cover any shortfalls and how the FTE are submitted, right?
Yes.
Okay, so everything's good. Everything's pretty much like it was.
And they're still going to do that in this.
That's what I was just asking.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, the Boys Ranch hasn't been open in a long time, so is the facility ready for a May 1st opening?
You're talking about the Boys Ranch off of 19?
Isn't that where
This
it's
is
gonna
not
be?
the same location.
Oh.
This is out in Paisley.
Yes.
Okay, so this facility is ready.
They're saying it is ready, and I will be visiting April 25th.
Good luck.
And don't go alone.
No, I'm going with the representative from Rite of Passage.
Well, I mean, yeah, don't go alone. But no, sitting on the Planning and Zoning Board when this came forward, there was a lot of opposition because they thought that they were bringing in a lot of thugs and things of that nature there. And then when it was presented and told a little bit more, explained to them what students would be coming there and the reason for them to be coming there, then the individuals on that side of it, they kind of relinquished their hold on it. So, but yeah. All right. So any further discussion on this? Superintendent.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon Banks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tremendous amount of work on her part on this, so thank you for that. I recommend approval of 11.01, the 1920 agreement with rites of passage for the Hope Forest Lake Academy.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Was that a sign? All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Just a few things this evening. First of all, thank you to Julia and Lexie. Amazing. I know we all will agree. These are two of our fabulous students. We have posted on our website the list of other special award winners from the State Science Fair, along with winners from the Steam Bowl, a state culinary competition, and the recent art exhibit at the Lake Square Mall. And those are all proudly displayed on our website, so you can check that out. Well, I want to remind parents and students that you can help us make our schools even better places to work and learn by completing the new 1819 Stakeholder Surveys. And there's one for parents, there's one for elementary students, and one for middle and high school students. And the instructions and links are posted on the website and on our social media pages, and we have until May 3rd to complete those anonymous surveys. The Florida Department of Education is also conducting a survey to gather public input on the revisions to the current Florida standards. So those interested in providing input can find these surveys at www.floridastandards.org. I want to remind you that we do have a workshop scheduled for next Monday. That is April the 15th. We have two things that we're going to be bringing to you at that time: the proposed new Alternative Education Center, as well as our alternative program for our schools as an alternative to suspension program, out-of-school suspension program. So we're excited to bring that to you on Monday. And we do have several letters of condolences. We did learn this weekend of the passing of Mr. Skip Crawford. We talked about him earlier. He taught at Eustis High School and was principal at the Harry Anna Crippled Children's Hospital in Umatilla, Altoona School, and Tavares Elementary, as was mentioned earlier. So we have sent letters of condolences to his family. Also letters to the mother, or to Pam Beeler, the program specialist in prevention programs and alternative education department. She lost her mother, Anna Beeler. And Julie Johnson, who works in information systems. She is our information systems specialist. Say that 5 times fast. She lost her father, Walter McFarland, so our condolences to her and her family. Betty Felkin, who is a bus driver for us, lost her husband, Tom Felkins. And Arlene Silvera, who's a teacher at Groveland Elementary, lost her husband, Nivelle Silva, who was also a teacher for us at Claremont Middle School. Retired bus driver Truman McCall, our condolences to him or to his family. And we also lost John Fiore, who was a teacher assistant at Windy Hill Middle School. So,
Superintendent, did you mention Savannah Register? I don't think I.
No, I did not.
She's a teacher. She's a current teacher of ours, and she lost her mother last week.
Thank you for letting us know. We'll make sure we get a letter to her family.
All right, thank you. All right, board member comments, Mr. Mathias?
So, Mrs. Shepherd, would you come back to the microphone? So on the 29th of March, our young people, excuse me, at Lake Mineola High School recognized a need for those less fortunate in the Panhandle. And can you talk just a bit about it? Because there was a proud Mama Hawk.
Our SGA wanted to adopt and do something for the school and for the students at a high school in the Panhandle from the hurricane. And so we collected personal items for them, school items, and so we did a competition also at school so that we were very competitive on the Hill. And so with that, we brought in all kinds of goods that we would be able to get to their schools to support them. Because when we went through our areas, I mean, we had a lot of folks that supported us. So we wanted to give back and pay it forward. And so we were able to do that. And Mr. Mathias greatly agreed to make sure that all of those items were transported to the Panhandle. And we were there to collect and box up and load, and off it went that weekend. So our Hawks are about that, and that's one thing that we try to encourage our Hawks to do, is to always give back and always to be there to help one another in need, and they
Those
did.
kids are inspiring, and they're inspiring because of great leadership.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I also had the opportunity to represent the board at the art exhibit at Lake Square Mall, and there were 300 pieces of art, and there probably was a good 600 people there for the award presentation. And truly, you see in the eyes of these young kids how important art is, and it was very well done. So both private and our public schools were represented. And today, I want to give a shout out now to Sherry Owens. So today, I had the opportunity to speak to Lake Federated Women's Club, and at the last minute, needed some major technical support. And Sherry met me over, so we were able to give the 9-minute presentation that we saw here as a board. Sherry manned the camera or the machine and all that stuff, and sat through an amazing lunch. It was meatloaf, and it was off the charts, just saying. Wasn't it good? So, okay. And then tomorrow I'm at the Kiwanis, and I know how to handle it myself now, so I'll be on my own for tomorrow. That's it.
Ms. Luke?
I particularly wanted to congratulate Julia and Lexie again. Lexie and her family are close personal friends of ours because Jensen goes to school with Lexie, so they've been buddies for a while. And Lexie is truly just an outstanding student, and she also has just some personality. Obviously, you guys saw it tonight. And Julia did fantastic for an elementary age student to come stand before a board and make a presentation is so impressive. And I would also like to thank Kellyanne Goring, who was the teacher that was sitting behind her, and I believe I saw Mr. Burris there as well. And Kellyanne is actually the one that reached out to me twice to see about bringing her here. If you have a teacher like Kellyanne, she is going to help push you to go very, very, very far in life. So I appreciate her support of her students as well. And I think I saw the Curriculum Instruction Division in the back as well. So seeing the district science fair people come to support these young ladies as they come and present to the board is also just a testament of how dedicated they are to their careers. So we appreciate all of those levels of support for students in Lake County. I also wanted to spend a special shout out to John Redding. He is one of our tech guys, like we can call on him for anything with technology. And Umatilla Elementary School is doing a presentation of Annie on April 27th. If anybody's interested, Lexie's little sister is Annie. And they are running out, the microphones aren't doing great in the cafeteria. And so I reached out to Mr. Redding, who went out to the school and assessed the situation. We're working on some GoFundMe things, but he's also going to get some microphones from his church for the production for the students as well. So it just is such a testament for the staff. He is not at that school. He works in the district department, but just willing to do whatever it takes. So we appreciate that type of dedication. Thank you.
Mr. Dodd?
Yeah. Well, those of you that enjoy the community outreach meetings that Commissioner Parks and I do, there's another one coming right up on April the 26th. It's a Friday morning from 8 to 10. We'll have special guest Sheriff Grinnell there. So if you've got some law enforcement type questions or some concerns you want to pass along, you can do that with your local county commissioner, school board member, and sheriff all in the same spot with some casual conversation. You know, it's not a formal presentation, so just feel free to come and go as you want. We're going to hold that one at the Florida Angler on Montrose Street in Claremont. And then the other item I'd like to applaud tonight is 8.03 for, those of you that have followed the school district for any length of time know that we are just so eager to be able to relieve some overcrowding at Sawgrass Bay and at Windy Hill, both sitting at an extremely high percentage of capacity. And in 8.03, awards the shortlist. So I was kind of hoping that I was going to see John Cargo racing out the back door there to go start the negotiations with the first contractor. Right. And about that. Why in the world did you all not get together after that? I mean, what do you think this is, government? We move quick, right? No, if only. But so anyway, can't wait to see what lies in store, and it'd be great to see some much needed relief for those students and for the teachers and the faculty and the staff that have made those campuses work for so long with so many kids. So coming eventually.
Yeah. Today I wanted to speak to, the level of the science that we've seen today throughout our county. The Eustis Middle School Shark Week, like those are the experiences. It is testing time. We are prepping for tests, and that's usually the driest, most not fun part of the school year. And Eustis Middle School is doing shark dissections. And I love that we have moved to the point where we can do that, where the kids can have hands-on dissections. You don't forget that stuff. I still remember dissecting cats and sharks or worms and all sorts of stuff. And that's the stuff that makes somebody want to be a scientist. Julia and Lexie were amazing. I think we all agree. And also, I actually got to go see Dr. Long from Treadway, she's an amazing teacher. She's a fifth grade teacher, but who has a real huge love of science and does all sorts of science things with her kids and is getting a $2,000 makeover that she won through a grant for her classroom. And I got to go see and congratulate her this week for that. So we just have some amazing science going on at elementary, middle, high, everywhere throughout our county. And it's just fabulous for this scientist to see the science that is going to bring more and more females into science. So I'm just really proud of our county right now. Thank you.
Yes, I was able to attend also at Treadway for that presentation, and I went up to the teacher. I said, did the principal come and tell you that you're moving to the other end of the campus next year? What? No. But they said, no, she's got to stay here for at least 3 years in this room. So I think it's great that and I just want to say also a shout out also to the superintendent on that, because she spoke to the individuals involved with this and said, hey, we need this in Lake County. And then this teacher, from what I recall, she said, I've got to have it or something like that on her application or whatever she put in. I want this or I need this or something like that. So that kind of stood out to them as well. So I think this is great that they partnered with Lake County Schools and with the teacher there at that school. Also, real quick, Mr. Crawford is responsible for my hiring. He hired me back when he was at Taverius Elementary, so you can blame him for me being here. For the background that I have. But one of the things that stood out to me also was while he was there, not long after I was hired in, he said, hey, would you like to go to Lake Tech and become, take electrical or HVAC or something like that? Because I see a future here, because I replaced, well, he was actually the head custodian, Bill Giffing, but Bill and Hans Brandt that was there, they did not send in work orders left and right. They did the work orders themselves on the campus. Anything that they could repair, they repaired. And between Hans and Bill, they had a huge background of knowledge of things that they could do. Now, they didn't get too much involved with the HVAC when it came to the Freon part, but anything electronically, Bill and Hans can handle it, especially Bill. And so he asked if I would like to do that. Well, at that time, I just happened to be coaching my daughter and son in youth sports, and I'm a family man, so I'm like, I don't want to be away from my kids. But I could have been away from them for probably about 2 years to go through the program. It would have been great for me. But I appreciate it, and I told him I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to do this, because that was what he was about. He was willing to pay for it himself, and get it sponsored. So, I mean, I appreciate someone like that would step out for someone and help. And I'm surprised that you did not hear from Miss Luke tonight about her daughter hitting a home run this past weekend. Over the fence. And if you saw the pitch and the hit by someone that was behind the camera, and then all of a sudden the camera just went down the fence and all over the place, and I'm like, I didn't get to see her run any bases. She said, I didn't either. But one proud mom, and congratulations to her for that. But and I appreciate, I want to end this tonight this way. I appreciate each and every employee of Lake County Schools for what you do to promote Lake County Schools, to make it what it can and what we are trying to make it to be, a destination Lake County. Thank you. Good night. We're adjourned.